Hi, this is Eliza Inkberry with Darkside University's Gothic Gardening class. And this time I am talking about the second part of week three's section on variety. And before I was talking about design and garden design specifically, so simplicity and variety. But here I'm going to be talking about variety in plants and especially plant diversity, especially because this has been something that's concerning me because when I got into gardening, um, the selection was huge and I had trouble choosing what I wanted, and seed companies had so many options, and a lot of them were things that people saved seeds from, and through the years there were less and less options. And this past week when I went to the garden nurseries around here, almost everything I could find were patented plants, things with little trademark symbols on them, and very few of them were things that would come true from seed or be perennial if I planted them. The perennial selection was very, very poor, and the annual selection, I couldn't find any of the bedding annuals almost that I used to buy um, in little 4 packs or 6 packs or even 8 packs. And now it's like you can buy one larger plant for $3 to $5, whereas before you could buy a whole 6 pack for $1.20 or something. And you know, price inflation is going to go up, but I get the impression that a lot of these things have been phased out because they are so easy for the home gardener to grow, and they're easy to propagate and to have them year after year. And so now you have to kind of look for those types of plants, and if you're a new gardener, you'd have no reason to even know they existed because you don't see them anywhere anymore. Um, so this is a video that is more about how to find those, and it's going to be a long one, so you may have to pause it a bit, but hopefully it will help you out with diversity. I started with this article because it is important that nurseries offer these plants to people because it's very hard to learn otherwise about all the amazing plants that you could be growing. I was looking really hard for a Nepeta the other day, a named one preferably, and that's catmint. Um, it's a very prolific plant. It spreads like a mint, but it's a really good native pollinator attractor. And I looked and looked, and I went to 4 or 5 different nurseries. And that used to be such a common plant that there'd be 3 different options in it because it would come in different colors. And now I couldn't find a single one, and I couldn't even find similar plants. I couldn't find perennials. So um, nurseries are not offering things, and I think it's because the suppliers are not offering things to nurseries that they used to buy. Because I was going to a lot of locally owned places, and I have the feeling that if it were available from their suppliers, they'd be buying them. So this is a book that I really like. I think it's my favorite of all the seed-saving books that I have, especially because it has tips per region written by gardeners in those regions for the areas that she personally does not have growing experience in. And I can really relate to that teaching a class to a global set of students. It's hard sometimes to try to figure out what will work where you're living, and how things are different than my climate, and diseases, all the different growing requirements, that kind of thing. So this is a really good seed-saving book, has specific instructions for a lot of different seeds, and then once you've been doing it for a while, you can start to guess which seeds are going to be similar to the ones that you want to save. So if you have some really rare stuff that's not going to make it in here, you can go, oh, well, this achocha is really similar to a cucumber, so I bet that the seed saving instructions for it are likely to be similar, and you can try that, and it is. So that kind of thing becomes more innate after time. And then this is my favorite of my propagation books. It's really clearly illustrated, and it talks about grafting and rooting, and a lot of different options for propagating plants, especially not starting them from seed, like cloning them and so on. And you can buy one plant that's really expensive and then make 20 of them if you want. And that's a really nice option to save money in the garden. And then I really want more people to become plant breeders. And if you're watching this, please breed me some peaches for the southeast that are disease resistant. I don't have the space for it, or I'd be on that with a breeding program. If I had the room to have a breeding orchard, I would be doing it. So I would love to have a lot of species that we've kind of recklessly bred for flavor without including a disease-resistant package in there, and we need both. So if anyone's willing to do that, that would be great. This is a really nice article. It's got 11 pages to it, so it's very thorough. But it's a garden guide to saving seeds for um, the home gardener. And so this is Mother Earth News. And if you haven't noticed, you can see the address up here at the top. And then this is a vegetable seed saving handbook that I found that's free, and you can click on these different plant families and get instructions for saving seeds there. Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds offers this whole seed catalog. They have a free catalog, but it's kind of pared down comparatively. This one is like a huge fat book, and it's got I forgot how many, but like 1,500 seed species, I think. I don't know where it says, but it's got a ton of seed varieties in it, and you can go through it. You do need to have at least some general idea of what kind of seeds you're looking for, because there's not that many pictures, but it's a good place to find something, like if you're looking for a specific heirloom or you just want to know what kind of options are out there. This is the Seed Savers Exchange, and they're similar in some ways to Baker Creek, and they have a lot of saved seed and some really nice colorful heirloom options and open pollinated. And Seeds of Change really focuses on both saved seeds and for them to be organic. So if that's something that's really important to you, and if you're thinking about a seed, yeah, when that seed makes it to your garden, it's very likely there's very many chemicals on that seed anymore, and once it starts growing in your soil, it will mostly be an organic plant. But what you're doing when you buy organic seed is you're voting for that land to be treated organically with your dollar, because you're buying it from, the seed was grown out somewhere, and so you're saying that you wanted those plants to be grown organically. Southern Exposure Seed Exchange, same thing. They save a lot of seeds, and they really focus on varieties that are heirlooms in the southeast where I am. So I really like this catalog because these varieties have often been bred for extra um, disease resistance and heat tolerance and things that matter for my region. And there may be some for your region. I know that Native Seeds, and they have some seed saving instructions here, but Native Seeds is really good for the West Coast. Um, so if you want to check them out, they have some really cool things. A lot of it seems pretty foreign to me because some of it won't grow where it's really humid. Pine tree seeds, they have a lot of heirlooms and a lot of open pollinated, and they usually market in their catalog, and I like their prices. Sometimes the prices are low because you get so few seeds. So they are kind of a seed catalog where they're expecting you to buy stuff so that you can grow it out and save the seeds from it. So if you only get, say, 10 seeds of something, then you're going to grow those plants out, you're going to save those seeds, and then you're going to plant those the next year, and you'll have a lot more. So it's a good way to get a lot of different varieties on a budget. And this is a website that's new to me that one of my students recommended, and it looks really similar in a lot of ways to some of the others that I just mentioned, but it was really cool to look through and see what's popular in Australia, and I was having a good time seeing what is being saved there. And then this is a way to get free seeds. This is the Garden Web Exchanges and Trading. And so you can trade seeds, you can trade plants, you should trade those bare root. So if you don't know what bare root is, you should look that up. And it's basically a plant without any soil on the roots. So you're going to rinse the soil off because that's where a lot of the pathogens and pests will reside. And so you want to send disease and pest-free plants when you're sending them to other states. You can't legally send them outside of the country, but there are exchanges for Australia, New Zealand, Europe. So there's some exchanges for some different areas. And then this is on my website, and it is the catalog directory. It's kind of old, actually, and I need to update it, but there are a lot of catalogs here that I'm not mentioning above that you may want to check. I mean, not above, but in the previous lesson. So if you want to check those out, I write a little bit about each catalog and why I like it. And then we're actually going to switch to my photos for the rest of the lesson here. And so this is my yard, the backyard, on one of the urban farm tours that we had. And we had, I think, like 600 visitors at that one. And the urban farm tour is like our city's farm tour. So you can kind of see my beehives are in the back here. I would be really concerned if they were doing that with the bees I currently have, because they're extremely grouchy, and I'm going to probably requeen them with something a little more peaceful. They've been chasing us around the yard lately. And then that's my fig. And right here is a grape that's actually now, it's a muscadine that last year my neighbor's yard guy sprayed with herbicide, so I've got to replace that. But, you know, I'm changing a lot of this. This is going to become a pond right here. I'm going to have a duck run over here. A lot of these beds are going to become hugelkultur, or if they haven't already, because some of them have. I'm going to put an herb spiral right about here probably. And I'm going to have another pond low in the landscape. And then my chicken run, you can't see, it's off the image over here. And so these are some of the seeds that I had newly started. We do the straw bale cold frame, which is just a couple of rows of bales, and then you put recycled windows over the top, which works really well for us since we change a lot of things. Then it's more convenient than having a permanent structure in place all year, especially since we're only on 1/4 of an acre. But we do grow a lot of variety that we can't find at nurseries, so it's important to us to start a lot of our own plants. This is one of our harvests. You can see that we grow a lot of different things. I like to have backups. A lot of these are heirloom tomatoes, and some heirlooms, it's kind of a weather thing. Some years the weather is perfect for certain heirlooms, and other years it's not. And so with tomatoes especially, I find that, say, garden peach was my favorite tomato the first year I grew it. And then the second year I grew it, we got the wrong amount of rain for it, and they were watery and kind of bland and didn't taste very good. So they're extremely variable, especially tomatoes in flavor. Some years, certain ones are my favorites, and other years I'm very bored by them. The milk actually came from some friends because we babysat their goats, and I think I'm going to talk about most of this stuff as I keep going. So these are some small tomatoes. This one's probably chocolate cherry. It could be brown berry. And it's one of our favorites because it's got kind of a big heirloom flavor, even though it's a little cherry tomato. We do a lot of different sizes. This one I wanted to talk about because it is shade tolerant. This is white currant, and the thing about white currant is the fruits are so small and pale that you can grow it in the shade and you're still going to get fruits on it. You're not going to get as heavy a crop, but you will get a harvest. So if you really want tomatoes and you don't have any sun, this is a good option. And I also use these as a perennial tomato because they reseed themselves true on their own without me having to plant them most years. And I do save a lot of seeds from them, but it's so I can give them away to people. So I really recommend this tomato. It tastes really good too. And then these are some of the tomatoes that we're drying. Another harvest. This long squash I'm going to show you again in a moment, a different one, but that's a tromboncino squash. And these are the, I'm going to butcher how to pronounce this, but these are Riestomate aus Siebenbergen, and they are the traveling tomato of Transylvania, basically, and you pull them apart to eat them. And here's a whole lot of different types of eggplants. This one's my favorite. It's called Camo. It's got a really good flavor. And the thing about all of these eggplants, I find that the Asian and the Italian ones that you pick when you can still bruise them easy with a fingernail don't need any of the kind of soaking or other salting recommendations that I sometimes see in cookbooks for bitterness. And I'm wondering if just the bitterness is because grocery store eggplants are picked when they're past ripe, because the little Thai eggplants like these, they're for pickling and they are bitter, but that's kind of the point of them. And this one's a little African one. But the like these long ones here and these, they're never bitter. And this is our largest native fruit in North America. This is the pawpaw. This tree is actually big enough that it's fruiting now. This is an old photograph, but this is a fruit that basically bruises really easily, and so most people have never heard of it because it bruises as easy as a banana, but the skin on it is as thin as a pear. And so you can imagine how hard it has been for people to figure out how to ship it. It also is incredibly fragrant. If you've ever smelled like a bin of really ripe cantaloupes, it's stronger smelling than that. But it tastes like a mango, banana, vanilla custard, and it's got kind of soft flesh like a custard, and we just made a really nice beer out of it. We always make custards. It's incredibly delicious and easy to grow, tolerates a lot of cold, so even though it looks like a big tropical mango, you can grow it in a lot of places. And that's it again. That's the seed on it. If you get seeds from this, they will not germinate if you dry them out. So you need to go ahead and plant them, or you need to put them in a Ziploc bag with a moist paper towel or some very faintly damp peat moss, and store them in the fridge until like kind of maybe a few weeks before your frost-free date, and then you could plant them in a pot outside, and they'll most likely come up that season or the season after. That's the flower on it, and it's a fly-pollinated flower, so it very faintly smells like carrion. Um, and they're kind of creepy and bat-looking and pretty close to black, so they're a cool addition for the goth garden as well. These are my family's pomegranates that have been in our family for 5 generations. We used them as centerpieces at my wedding, and that's what this photo is from. They're not like a really dark red pomegranate, but they're extremely cold hardy, and they have a great flavor. And that's my granny who grew it. We're going to be selling the pomegranate, or actually I'm not, but Useful Plants Nursery in Asheville, North Carolina is going to be selling it as Granny Emma Berry, with her on the left here, when she was younger. And that's the flowers on it. And this is the Granny Emma Berry pomegranate that has been in our family. And then this one is a named variety that I had bought called Wonderful. And we had a night that got down to 4 degrees this winter. And the Wonderful variety is mostly dead. The wood, if you cut into it, is brown in a lot of patches in the middle. So it's leafing out in the few places that aren't as damaged, but it will eventually completely die because of the brown parts and the fact that the sap can't get up through the trunk. So I'm going to cut this and put something else there, maybe a yuzu citrus or a loquat, which has a fruit kind of like an apricot. And you can see right behind it that the one that has been passed down in my family is incredibly cold hardy and totally ignored the temperature drop. This one is tromboncino squash again. And the reason I grow this, if you're in the southeast and you have issues with squash vine borer, this squash barely or doesn't at all get squash vine borer because the stems on it are kind of hard and not hollow, and the borer prefers hollow squash stems. So the most of the crookneck squash and the zucchinis and stuff like that, they get really bad squash vine borer, which kills them, and they basically burrow around inside the plant and kill it from the inside. So a lot of people just see their plant wilting and don't know what's happening, but that's it, and if you look at the base of it, you'll see this brown, kind of sawdusty looking frass, and that's the waste from them. Um, this is the tromboncino squash again. It's the Cucurbita machata is the species, so there's a lot of named varieties in it, and so this one here is Long Island cheese, and it's a pumpkin that is a Cucurbita machata bred to be a pumpkin, and this one's Cucurbita machata bred to be bred to be, basically it's a butternut squash when it's this size, but when you pick it young like this, it's and you can still dent it with a fingernail. It's a very good zucchini substitute. And so this is zephyr squash that we really enjoy. It's actually not open pollinated, but you can see here these stems are the ones that are hollow, and that's the one that the borers really like. It lays the eggs at the base of the plant here and takes it out. So when I lose the plant, I just turn to my tromboncinos at that point. Um, I think this is Minnesota midget. I like to grow small melons every year because they're very easy to trellis. The plant in the background is a sage, so it's not the leaves from this. I just put it there for contrast. This is a gumi. Gumis fix nitrogen, and they also have a tart cherry-like fruit that you can eat. And they're a very pretty plant in the landscape. They're about the size of a blueberry plant. So I highly recommend gumis. And this is a red burgundy okra. I love the light on the veins of the leaves there, and the flower on it. It's just gorgeous. You can tell that it's in the hibiscus family. And this is sesame, so it looks a lot like a white snapdragon, and it will have these pods on it that have sesame seeds inside them. But I mean, I would grow this just as an ornamental, but it's nice to tuck in all over the yard for a little sesame seeds here and there. This is Delfino cilantro. The variety of cilantro is called Delfino, and it's lacy cilantro. So it comes out like this. You know, some of the cilantro, it'll have big broad leaves, kind of like a Italian parsley, and then when it goes to flower, it'll have lacier leaves at the top. But this one starts out lacy even when it's not flowering yet. And I like it because it's very easy to trim that and already have minced cilantro for salsas. But I also like it because it's slightly slower to bolt, which means go to flower and have fewer leaves than traditional cilantros. And this is where I'm saving seed from it. And that's coriander. By the way, cilantro and coriander are the same thing, but coriander is the seed stage. This is papillo. It's a really rare herb in the U.S., but it is used to flavor dishes, I think in like Bolivia and Peru. It's a very beautiful plant. It looks kind of that fresh spring green all season long. This is how it looks even in the fall when everything else is starting to look kind of brown and old and tough. It's a very strong flavored herb. I find that one leaf goes a long way. And if you've ever had nasturtium flowers or papaya seeds, which taste like nasturtium flowers, I think that papillo tastes like those, plus lime and cilantro. This is Vietnamese coriander, which is a creeping herb. In my area, it does not set seed. It's hardy here in zone 7B to 8, and it's kind of looks a lot like smartweed, and I think it's related, but it's not smartweed, and it doesn't reseed everywhere. It just kind of spread like maybe an oregano. This is amaranth greens, which I think make, you can buy them in different colors. I got these seeds, I think, from either Evergreen Asian Seeds online or Kitazawa Seeds. And so you can get different colors and do kind of these patterns and stuff. Just one word of caution is if you plant these near your cucumbers, the cucumber beetles actually prefer the amaranth to the cucumbers and they will eat it up. So it's a good thing to separate them if you actually want the amaranth greens to eat. And here are tea hibiscus. If you've ever had red finger tea, this is Hibiscus sabdorifa. And it's also called roselle and Florida cranberry and a lot of other common names. And it's pretty easy to grow. It does set fruit in the fall usually, so you'll think that nothing is going to happen all year long because it takes a long growing season, and then when the days start to shorten, it finally flowers and sets these calyxes, which are the fruits. And you use those to dry and make the tea with, or you can make jams and a lot of other products. This is unripe. I didn't have a picture of a ripe one, but this is mandarin melonberry, and it's one that a lot of people have never heard of, or they call it by the wrong name, but it tastes exactly like a watermelon. But it has, when it's ripe, it looks like a raspberry kind of, and it has that same soft raspberry texture, but tastes just like a watermelon. It's related to mulberries. This is a kievia fruit, and this is what it looks like when it's ready to eat. The pulp is really sweet and kind of just plain tasting, though. It's just like sugar. These are black walnuts, which a lot of people don't think of to eat, and they are difficult to get into. I mean, you can drive your car over the nuts and they don't break open. You need a good hammer. Some people say they've invented black walnut crackers, but we've bought a lot of them and they don't work. Um, but the neat thing about these is that you need maggots to make them edible for you. So you have to wait until, you don't have to. Some people prefer to pick them open green when they're like this, but we wait till they turn black like that because that's when the walnut husk maggots have eaten the husk off. They don't go into the nut because the nut itself has a really hard wooden shell. But they eat away the husk, and that makes it fall off really easily. And then we can rinse them off and dry them and store them till we're ready to crack them. These are passion fruit, and they're the native passion fruit on the East Coast. It's a maypop, if you've heard of maypops. This is what they look like ripe. A lot of people will see them like this or like this and they'll think that's ripe, especially because they tend to fall off the plant when they're round and green like this. But you actually want them to start to wrinkle and you want them to be really fragrant. And then they're quite delicious. And the pulp from them, just one of them would flavor an entire pitcher of tea. I kind of use them more like a extract, like a vanilla extract, than I do a fruit because they're pretty seedy, but they're also just very strongly flavored. And so this is the flower for the passion fruit maypop. It's Passiflora incarnata, and you can see where the stamens on this are perfectly aligned for this bee to walk under it and get the pollen on its back. And the other thing that the passion flowers do is the nectar from it gets them really, really drunk. And then they just wobble around and keep going from flower to flower obsessively. This is pineapple guava, and it grows in Zone 8. We had our first fruit harvest last year, and so we're looking forward to possibly more fruit this year. It has the most amazing flower. It's a delicious flower that you can eat the petals of without damaging your fruit harvest if you just carefully pick the petals off but leave the stamen and pistil alone. And the fruit is just delicious and tropical, and we were sad we didn't have more of them. This is the flower. It's not the best picture, but these petals are really fat and, kind of fruity and sweet, and one of the best edible flowers I've ever eaten. These are mostly David Austin roses. Some of them are heirlooms, but they're roses that don't require spraying, and they're one of my favorite things. That I've actually moved all my rose bushes down to my mom's house, but I go and pick bouquets of them. And this is Rosa rugosa. Um, you can see from the insect in the middle that it's a good beneficial insect attractor, but it's also a good fruiting rose. And these hips are very large, and they'll turn bright, bright red, and you can make good jellies and stuff from them. And then this is in the rose family. This is June berries or service berries. It's actually more closely related to plums than it is to blueberries, which it looks like. And once they get to this kind of purple stage right here, they're pretty good and ripe and very tasty. This is a salad of wild greens. It's dock and some chickweed and dandelion and violets and stuff. So I showed this because sometimes the things you're growing may be edible or useful to you and may add variety and diversity to your garden, and you don't even have to plant it. And if you think about a dandelion, we go out of our way to kill them, but there's no really logical reason for it. They kind of look a lot like the marigolds people buy in little packs to put in their garden, and historically, we used to have dandelions and clover in our lawn seed that was sold until they found a chemical that would kill broadleaf um, plants like dandelions and clover, but would not kill blade plants like grass. So then they went into this big marketing bonanza of, oh my gosh, aren't broadleaf plants ugly in your lawn? And it worked really well because now Americans just hate dandelions with a passion. But if you think about them, they've got these beautiful fairy-like um, seed clusters that kids love to blow on, and they have beautiful, friendly yellow flowers that you don't even have to plant. And they also have a deep taproot that busts through heavy compacted soil and brings nutrients up from down below. And then when the leaves rot away, the nutrients are left on the surface for the soil food web to mix back in. They're a really cool plant that we should start to encourage in our landscapes instead of trying to get rid of it. This is Verbena bonariensis, which is also called stick verbena, and I like it a lot because of the stick quality to it. Most of the leaves are down low, so these little flowers are just the right size to attract little beneficial insects, but they don't block the light. So you can plant them all in your garden beds, and they'll put these flower spikes everywhere to attract good insects without taking away from your other plants and crops. These are Korean nut pines, which make pine nuts. And this is one of our pepper harvests. That's actually my mom's couch. And we had a ton of, this is mostly hot peppers, but we actually have some sweet ones mixed in there too, because we often grow sweet peppers that are not big fat ones because they're easier to grow. And these are all hot peppers. I see fish and sweet. Well, there may be sweet pickle peppers in here, and they're not hot. But there's a purira is in here, and a lot of different. I think I see some Tabasco peppers. There's just a huge variety here. That I think that's cherry bomb. Um, these are Peter peppers, which, if you're wondering if they really look like the photos that you see online, they really, really do. And these are fish peppers, which I really like because the foliage is variegated and so is the pepper. These are our native cherries. These are Prunus serratina, and they get called black cherries, which is the same as the black cherry flavors that you can buy at the supermarket. And this is a North Star cherry that we got. The cherries on it are a little bit small, but it's a more disease-resistant cherry, especially for our Zone 8. It's a little bit more tolerant. Cherries don't always do that well here because our weather is not great for them to set fruit. This is a chocha, which is a really good cucumber substitute. When you pick them really small, they're kind of solid, and you can slice them and eat them similar to a cucumber. But once they start to ripen up, they actually, if you slice them in half, are hollow when you scoop the seeds out. And the nice thing is you can go ahead and save the seeds from them because they're already mature. They look like little black puzzle pieces when they're ripe. And but once you've sliced it in half and you've got a hollow kind of cucumber flavored fruit, you can spoon in your tzatziki sauce or whatever you like to eat with cucumbers and have stuffed a chocha, which is really tasty. These are Hakuri turnips, which at some point I'm going to get around to breeding my own version that is open pollinated. And this is a trifoliate orange that's not ripe yet, but these are, well, some people debate whether or not they're edible. I've eaten a good bit of them and I was fine. I probably won't eat them while pregnant, but they ripen into these fuzzy little orange, basically oranges, and they have kind of a sweetish, lemony flavor. and you can use them to make lemonade, and they're pretty seedy, but they have a nice flavor to them. And this is variegated lemon. You know, if you're lucky enough to live somewhere that you can easily, without protection, grow citrus outside. I'm actually starting to feel lucky to have the weather that we do growing citrus here because of the citrus greening disease that's hitting so much of the U.S. And we have kind of this little island of citrus where I'm at because nobody near us can grow it that well. Um, so I am trying to grow some citrus outside, but lemons and limes tend to be less likely to make it than some of the satsumas and kumquats and yuzus and other kinds of citrus, grapefruit. But you can build a wood frame and then put some plastic over it, and you don't even have to heat it unless you have some really extreme temperatures. And usually your citrus will make it through the winter in Zone 8 and even in Zone 7B. This is elderberry flowers, and if you've ever had Saint Germain liquor or elderflower flavored things, this is what it comes from. And this actually has a natural yeast on it, so you can look up how to make an elderflower bug and make kind of people call it elderflower champagne from it. And it's kind of like a slightly carbonated, beautifully floral drink that you can make. And then these will ripen into berries that are often used for a antiviral cough syrup in the winter, and they're also used as a food source, but you do need to process them, like cook and make them into jams and stuff before you eat them. Mulberries, it's like a blackberry tree, no thorns. They taste so good. Highly recommended. Pakistan is a variety that has really long fruit. The black mulberries are delicious. The only thing about it is if you plant it near your driveway, you're going to have bird poo with purple blotches all over your car. But I think it's a small price to pay for such a wonderful fruit. Very easy to harvest. You just lay out a sheet and shake the tree. And this is spiderwort. It's native here. That's a syrphid fly sitting on it. It's a good pollinator, and the larvae of that are good predators of garden pests. But the plant itself has edible greens. You can look up how to make those, and so it's a nice plant to have in the garden. It's Tradescantia or something along those lines. I don't know how you pronounce it. Spiderwort, and really nice plant to have. This is our prickly pear cactus, especially taken during the winter, but it's looking a lot better now and making new pads, which are also called nepales. And it makes these fruits that are called tunas, prickly pears, and it's delicious. So a really good plant to have. And opuntias, which are prickly pears, are a cactus that is native to the U.S., and there's a lot of different species of it. And actually right behind that are our two olive trees. These are figs that we've harvested. These are either brown turkey or Celeste. I can't remember which one we're harvesting here. And they're both good varieties for more cold inclined places. I think up to Zone 7 they'll make it. And these are ground cherries. They're delicious. They're very easy to grow. They have a little papery husk. And so I think I've got a picture here. Yes, so we usually lay them out on trays to make sure the paper part dries out, because then you can put them in a basket like this and they're not going to rot for a long time. And the longer they sit, the riper they get, actually. So they start to turn really golden and slightly orange, and that's when they're the best tasting. And they do have kind of a hint of pineapple to them. They're like a sweet berry that's in the tomato family, nightshade family. And these are tomatillos, which are also similar because they have this husk and they're closely related. And they can be eaten raw, or you can process them into salsa verde, and they're really, really good. So here's some variegated basil. I think this is called Pesto Perpetua or something along those lines. And I think this may be a trademarked plant that you're not supposed to propagate, but I usually get one every year because they are nice in an ornamental garden. I usually only get one though, so I guess you can count it as my variety if you're looking at plant design that just stands out. I didn't realize this photo was so small, but this is of our native mountain mint, and this white on it is not a disease. That's actually just this blushing um, that frosting that happens to it naturally. And it's got a really good flavor, and you can make a tea out of it. Um, this little guy is actually not that great. He likes to eat my flowers. He's a chafer beetle of some sort, but he's also a scarab. And this is a sage that has variegated tricolor leaves that's really pretty. So you can get a lot of sages, like culinary sage. This is, the kind that you would stuff with a turkey. And it's a really good culinary plant, but also a really nice ornamental. This is calendula, which is a good edible flower for you can sprinkle it on salads. You can use it as a saffron substitute in rice. And it's also very pretty and a good beneficial insect plant. The big yellow flowers here are actually not edible, but these orange flowers and these round speckled variegated leaves are nasturtiums, and they have a very peppery flavor. This is coreopsis, and you don't want to eat that. These are different colors of lettuces. Definitely a lot of variety to be had in lettuce. I really prefer the open leaf varieties over the heading types. They're just much easier to grow for the home gardener. And these are golden snow peas. I like these a lot because they're so easy to see on the vine, so you definitely know when you've got ripe ones and you can find them. I usually put these with a blue potting pea that when you eat it young tastes really good, and you can leave it on the vine till later too, but then it's more of a soup pea. But the two of them are a nice contrast for each other. And this is what I do with my extra pea seeds at the end of, at the end of planting. And here we plant these out in February, but you need to look at what the planting date is for your area. And when I am done planting my row of peas, I pour the entire rest of the packet in a single square foot of space, no matter how many there are, because what happens is they all sprout, and then you have a constant source of pea greens, and when you pick the tender tips of it, you can eat those and they taste just like a snow pea, so they're a really good salad green. And I have them here next to pansies, which are edible flowers. This is hyacinth bean, and it's edible. There's a lot of debate about that, but all beans are poisonous if you eat them uncooked. And this one is a major food source in a lot of countries. If you pick them young, they tend to be the tastiest, I think. I know that some countries process the mature beans, but I usually stick to the young pods where the beans are immature. And this is when the pods are just slightly past the stage that I'd want to eat them on a hyacinth bean, but they're really pretty, and I still would probably eat them at this stage. And in the background, actually, these are papillo seeds. That's what the seed pods on papillo look like. And these are different beans. I really like purple ones and yellow ones because they stand out. I think that's yellow annalino. Um, I don't know what all the rest of them are. I know I do Trion Fauve Violetto or something like that a lot, and that's probably a Annalino, just a regular one. Oops. Um, but you can find some really great beans, and actually Seeds from Italy is a really good catalog to get beans from, and Vermont Bean Seed Company, a lot of places. These are sword beans and actually some hyacinth beans, but these really, really huge ones here, they're kind of past the stage that you'd really want to eat them, but they're a really cool, weird, giant bean that you can grow, and I think they're a pretty fun conversation piece in the garden, but you can eat them when they're a smaller pod and they're pretty tasty. And this is a yard-long bean, and you can see on here that that's about the right width to eat it. And when you harvest yard-long beans, what you're looking for is for them to be about the diameter of a pencil. And so it doesn't actually matter how long they are. Sometimes they actually will be 3 feet long when I pick them at pencil diameter, and sometimes they'll be a bit shorter, but they're always longer than a green bean. And the thing about them is they don't snap like a snap bean, so you're going to need a knife to slice through them before you saute them or do whatever you're going to do. You can cook them any way that you would cook a green bean. That's moonflower. We've talked about them a bit, and that's in my backyard. Well, most of these are. This is red spider zinnia. and it's one of my favorite zinnias. It's really good for beneficial insects, and it's just a really interesting zinnia because it doesn't look like a lot of the other ones. This is Peonia japonica. It's a forest peony, a Japanese peony, and that's the seed pod on it after the flowers faded. And this is a tea camellia, which is black tea, green tea, and white tea. It's all from the same plant, and it's just harvested in different ways. And this one's a pink flowering one. This is Camellia sinensis, and this is another Camellia sinensis. And so this is what tea looks like when it's growing. And it is a camellia, which is in the same family as the sasanquas and the Japanese camellias that people are used to growing as ornamentals. Um, and this is a lily, and I included this because a lot of people will buy those like Easter lilies and stuff at the store thinking that they have to throw them out, and depending on what zone you're in, I mean here they very easily will grow outside afterwards. These are a variety of carrots. It's probably a purple dragon carrot, and then these are it looks like Thumbelina maybe, or little finger. I like to grow short, fat carrots in beds that are not very well established because the soil isn't built up deeply yet in young beds, and so these have an easier time. And even that, you still get some of the split ones. This is what happens when a carrot hits a stick or a rock or something, or it gets caught on some compacted soil. These are young celery plants, and it's actually a green one, a red one, a green one, and a red one. I did some patterns like that one year. Um, and they grow really well in the winter here, but depending on what your climate is, if you're on the west coast in a rainy area, then you probably can grow them year round easily. I have some growing right now in the front, but they're really bolting and going to seed, so I'm going to be saving seed from them since they're all a red variety. Um, and this is purslane, which a lot of people have as a very difficult weed, but if you eat it, then it's not as much of a weed. And I kind of like the succulent texture. It looks a lot like a portulaca. Um, and these are two different kinds of cucumbers. So we're almost exactly the same size, but this is a blonde cucumber, and this is just a pickling one of some variety. I don't remember which varieties these are, but if you look for white cucumbers, there's a lot of different varieties. And then there's lemon, which is not quite white, but it's a good one. It's very round, and when it starts to get a little overripe, it turns yellow. These are different. Well, no, they're not different. They're all the same variety of bulbing fennel. So if you've seen bulbing fennel at the store, those are pretty young, but they get bigger, and then you can cut them and roast them or however you like to eat fennel. This is Job's Tears. Really nice ornamental. I've heard you can eat it, but I'm not sure how you do that. And then you can make these into really nice beads, and you can dye the beads if you want to. So it's a really nice ornamental grass and a great thing to save seeds from and keep having year after year. This is garden huckleberry, which is similar to the sunberries I told you about, but on this one, you're definitely going to want to cook it to process it before you eat it, and on the sunberries, you can just eat them raw. These don't actually taste all that good raw, but they're also not supposed to be eaten until they change from being shiny like this to starting to look kind of dull in color, and that's when they're actually ripe. And then you pick them and make jams and things like that out of them. This is black pepper. We have this as a house plant. It's a very easy to grow house plant, and these will ripen up into black peppercorns, so that's a cool benefit. It looks like your philodendrons and stuff, except that it's going to make food. This is a young artichoke plant. They grow well in zone 8 in well-drained soil, and this is a close relative milk thistle, which is used as a medicinal, but it also has really pretty white variegated foliage and flowers. The flowers are similar to artichokes. This is a flowering allium, which is an onion. Alliums are the onion family. There are no alliums that you can't at least eat the flowers on them or some part of them. But mostly these are grown for the ornamental quality. This is the flower, and this is it once it's totally gone to seed. It looks kind of like fireworks. And this is a Welsh bunching onion that was flowering in my yard this morning, actually, and so they're really good at attracting beneficial insects. But I like the bunching onion, the Welsh one, because it's perennial and it'll keep making additional ones, and I can just replant the small ones and eat the larger ones. Same thing for this. This is Egyptian walking onion. And you can see this part at the top. These are little bulbils that will get really heavy and it'll weigh it down to the ground. And when that happens, these will root where it hits the ground. Oops. And so they are like, it's like they walk, is how they got their name. And this is something I thought was funny at Plant Delights Nursery, which is a named variety of pokeweed that's being sold as an ornamental because it's bright yellow, which if you have pokeweed naturally in your yard, then you'll see why I think it's amusing. But it is actually a really popular plant in Europe as an ornamental because over there, it's not a weed. Um, these are different greens, and I think I'm showing off a turnip here. But I've got what looks like collards maybe, and turnips. Then the greens on those are really tasty. Here's a variety of mushrooms. A lot of these are edible. I see some black trumpets and chanterelles. There's some boletes in there and some corrugated lactarius and Bradleys. And so a lot of those are really good edibles. Some of these are not, like these yellow ones here, definitely not. There's some other ones. But I wanted to mention there's a variety of mushrooms as well, and a lot of them you can inoculate parts of your garden to grow them on purpose. This is stalked puffballs, which I doubt anyone would grow on purpose, but I included this because it's pretty weird looking, and this is another type of fungus. They kind of look like eyeballs. But if you want eyeballs in your garden, you can just grow Splianthes, which is also called toothache plant, and you can crumble up a leaf and put it against a toothache, and it will have a numbing effect. This is Leonotis. It's also called lion's tail. There's another one called lion's mane. There's a bunch of different similar species here. And the only thing about this is when you save seed from this thing, you need to be wearing like almost like metalworking gloves because, man, it is prickly. But it's a really, really tall plant, but in a way similar to the Verbena bonariensis because it's mostly a big stick, and so it doesn't throw a lot of shade. And this is the flower up close again, and these things dry as spiky as they look. These are muscadines, which sadly I will not have this year, but I'm pretty sure my neighbors didn't do it on purpose because I know their kids like to eat the muscadines, and I think they were as sad about it as we were. Their yard guy just got confused, I guess. Um, And this is a pink flowering strawberry, really great when you want strawberries and you want it to be ornamental. And we've been eating a lot of these this year, and they are extremely tasty. So you're not sacrificing flavor. I think they're called TriStar or TriSan. So if you want to look that up, these are alpine strawberries. The flavor on them is unbelievable. And this is rat's tail radish, which is one of my favorites for pickling, and also kind of like the name, even though a lot of people hate the name because they don't want to eat anything that's got rat's tail as the thing that they're supposed to aesthetically think of it as. They can get really spicy once the weather heats up. This is the flowers on the rat's tail radish, so it's a very nice ornamental, and these are edible flowers, although every time you eat a flower, you're not going to get a pod. And that's it. So, got a few more different kinds of eggplant in there. It looks like some Caspers and maybe Listata digondia and a few other uh, and figs. And these are banana legs, paste tomatoes, some more of the David Austin roses. So yeah, if you have any questions about any of these, I mostly just wanted to give a strong sense of the kind of diversity that you can have in your garden. And this doesn't even begin to touch the tip of the iceberg. So if you want to maybe list some of your favorite plants in the comments on this video, that would be cool. And I look forward to talking to you in class.